So I'm going to start tonight, and I'm Barbara Dopkin. I'm the president of the North Highline Council. And we generally meet here the first Thursday of every month. We have open meetings. Everyone is always invited. If you haven't signed our list, you can give me your email, and I'll put you on our email list. And I shoot emails out every month before the meeting. And also, a great resource is the White Center Now blog. It's whitecenternow.com. It's a great community resource, and our meetings are always advertised on there. So we're not having meetings in July and August, and we'll resume in September, and I think it's September 4th or 5th, the first Thursday. So we're really pleased tonight to have our representative from the fire district, and unfortunately, Fire Chief Mike Mars is not feeling well, so he couldn't make it tonight, but he sent the next best thing to us, and who he said was even better than him. So, and that's Ray Pettigrew, the lieutenant with the Burien Fire Department. And so, but first up, we're always happy to have our White Center storefront deputy, B.J. Myers. So come on up, B.J.
Did anyone knock you one of these packets up here? I can bring one to you. I'll go over these stats and the information that I gave you, and then answer follow-up questions and talk about other things that you all may be interested in. As always, we have monthly stats on the front page that include Part 1 type crimes, and that's listed below, and Part 2 type crimes listed below. We have the exact same number of Part 1 and Part 2 crimes last year as we did in May of the previous year, which doesn't mean anything except that it's interesting. We always see a rise in the Part 1 type crimes over the summer. That's not necessarily a rise in violent crimes, although it could be, but it's often driven by vehicle thefts and burglaries going up, because many of those are committed by juveniles who aren't in school over the summer. So we expect to see those numbers go up over the summer this year also. I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about those. Anything jumping out to anyone on that page? Any questions? Okay. On the next page where we have the map of White Center, that's right there. This shows larcenies. The green dot, I always need to explain it. This is larcenies. That means theft of auto parts or things taken from a vehicle. So those are just thefts related to vehicles. Residential burglaries are the purple dots. Auto recoveries is where we find vehicles that have been reported stolen, and then the little cars are where vehicles were taken from. You can see that we had more. We usually see a lot of this stuff clustered around the business district on 16th, and we really don't have that much of a cluster of that happening in May. But there's a lot going on in Top Hat. So you can see that a lot of those things are going on in Top Hat. Which brings me to, because we had some questions about Top Hat crimes in particular and whether crime in Top Hat was going up. If anyone doesn't know, Top Hat is going to be the very middle right here. It's like west of 509 over to about 4th Avenue is kind of what we consider to be Top Hat. And so this next page has stats that were compiled. Unfortunately, on short notice, this was all that our statistician had on hand. This shows, again, those Part 1 and Part 2 types of crimes, auto thefts. You see VUXA. VUXA is the police abbreviation for narcotics. So VUXA is drug-type crimes. Gang-related activity, robbery, commercial burglary, and residential burglary. So there's a lot of info on here. It shows the number of these that were reported in the first 4 months of the year, first 5 months of the year, this year and last year. So looking at that same period of time last year, and then this year, how many of these types of crimes did we have? What I would say, looking at this, is I really wish we had more years, right? Because all this shows is the change in 1 year. And so it doesn't really show whether last year was a down year or this year is an up year. So that's my caveat, that's what makes these statistics a little incomplete. But she did put here in each section a percentage change over the last year. So you can see that in a number of these categories, we had a 10 to 20% increase in activity. When you look at those numbers, like with the narcotics, the VUXA, you see there's a 114% increase. Well, that's because there was only 7 last year, and there's 15 this year. What is captured in this is not only crimes that were reported by you guys, but also things that we see and take action on. And I'll say that we've had an emphasis in Top Hat over the last 9 months at least, where we've been sending more of our cops up there. We have deputies that have done problem-solving projects where they spend time there. They try to bring in detective resources. So there's been extra attention on White Center that would account for some of the bump in things like VUXA and auto theft, because we've been catching people stealing cars or driving stolen cars because we're spending time in that neighborhood. But certainly it does look like there, at least compared to last year, there's been more crime in that Top Hat area. Do you have questions about these? Did that explanation make sense to everybody? Yeah, like I say, I'm sorry. If some of you are interested in digging into this a little bit more, I'm happy to get a little more comprehensive stats from our statistician and work with them to do that. Let me know if that's something you want to do. Okay. Right.
BJ, couldn't also maybe in the report tonight, could you mention the link where you can go online and just pick up the maps? Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
You're talking about that crime reporting?
Yeah, well, it's like the one you have here.
Yeah. So the ones that we were talking about that we think is if you go to the King County Sheriff's Office website or the Burien Police website, I believe, there's crime stats or crime reporting links where you can look up specific neighborhoods or entire cities or all of this area around here. Look these stats up yourself. This is all public data that we just simply drop into this format. And you can also get updates yourself. I think Bob was saying that he gets weekly emails. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's weekly or every couple of weeks they'll send it to me so I can go on it just to see what's happening.
Yeah. So that's a great way to
sign up, I think.
to know all this stuff before I tell you. Any other questions on that stuff?
I would love to get that link. Is there a particular link that you can?
You know what? I will. I'll pull it up here before the meeting's over and write it up here for you guys. Yeah, sure. While we're talking about Top Hat, there was a homicide in Top Hat last week at about the 10700 block of Myers Way. The suspect was arrested that night. He's been charged with murder 1 and attempted murder. So it's all public out there. I talked to the detective that was on scene for that tonight. He kind of briefed me a little bit on it. I wasn't working that night, but it happened in the afternoon at about 4 p.m. It sounded like there was a confrontation between 3 people, 2 of them accusing one of stealing some property or having some sort of property dispute, and so they were going to fight about it. And the third guy pulled out his phone to video the fight. Well, one of these guys took offense to being videoed, and the confrontation then came between the 2 of them, and this guy shot the guy with the phone, video phone, shot him 1 time through the heart, and fled on foot. A lot of cops showed up in the area. The other person that was there was able to say, to identify the suspect. He was apprehended before he made it home, and has been, like I say, was charged already for attempted murder and murder. Attempted murder because he pointed the gun at that other person also.
Did they ever find the gun? I know they were.
No.
They were renting out.
No, they did not find the gun.
Was it gang related?
It was not gang related at all.
Just idiots that know each other,
You have the phone with the picture?
Yeah, in fact, the video of it all was on the phone.
About as open and shut.
So what's the moral of the story? Don't pull your phone to film the fight.
I think
No.
that's, we'll leave the moral up to you all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like I say, that was last week, and it may not have, I don't know, did that make much, was there much news splash on that one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there was?
Oh,
yeah.
I was out of town, I missed it.
We were cheek to elbow, all the TV cameras, and
Oh, okay.
it was Memorial Day, so.
Yeah.
Oh, it was on Memorial Day?
So what else was there, yeah.
Okay. Any questions about that?
Did the one who was shot, the victim, did he live in Top Hat? Or did they all live around here?
Oh, I don't know whether he lived in Top Hat. I know the suspect did, but I don't know if the victim and the witness did or not. Yeah, I think they knew each other. I don't know. I don't think they were friends, but they kind of knew of each other, so likely they were from the area.
So these people that have guns, did they have like a concealed weapon permit or?
It was a family gun. It was belonged to a family member, so it was not an illegal gun.
But, so when it's a family gun, but you can have it in your house, but you cannot have it on you unless you have a permit, right?
That's correct. You can't conceal it out in public, and so. What's that?
You can open carry.
You can open carry.
Oh, you can open?
Yeah, you can open carry. I doubt he was open carrying. Most likely in these situations, he's carrying it in his pocket or in a backpack or the waistband of his sweatpants or something like that. And then this back page is the press release that many of you have probably seen. This is regarding the rape and assault that occurred a couple months ago out on Roxbury and about 26th, late at night. I had shown we had that sketch that I showed at one of these meetings, hoping to find that guy. We were out there turning over every bush we could to try to find this guy. And it's because he's from Oklahoma that we didn't know who he was. He was up here visiting and then went back to Oklahoma shortly thereafter. He has been arrested already, is being charged with rape first degree and assault first degree. And I believe our detectives have already flown out to go help with the extradition process to get him back here. It came based off of DNA evidence that was taken from the scene and processed through the State Patrol Crime Lab. That's the quickest turnaround on DNA I've ever seen, so we were really pleased to have that evidence turned over so quick. Are there any questions about that?
Do you know how the woman is doing?
I haven't heard lately, but it was only just a couple weeks after the incident that she was back here in White Center and visiting people and recovering. It was really bad. It was a really bad one. So we were really pleased to see that she was able to come back. She's not from White Center, but has lots of friends up here and comes up here from time to time. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So DJ, I don't know, like I told you, I heard, things on the street.
Yeah.
And we all know who that is. But in downtown White Center, I've heard things are going on there, that there have been some attempted break-ins behind some of the businesses, and that one of the business people got into a fight with somebody. I mean, I've just been hearing stuff that the taco truck was robbed again, or, I don't know, is this really going on that you know of down there, or do you see an increase downtown?
No, I haven't seen an increase, but that doesn't mean that stuff isn't happening. None of those ring a bell with me. But I mean, that stuff happens in White Center, and so it's bound to continue happening, and other places too, like you say. That stuff happens, and so I haven't noticed an increase. I'll say that I've had people complain lately about response times to things like that, and I will say that all of us that work out here, we want to catch robbers and people that pull guns. There's nothing that we like more than catching those people and taking them to jail. And so when there's an opportunity for us to do that, we don't delay unless we have to. And because of the way that our 911 system works, it's kind of a triage system around here sometimes, that we weigh the severity of the next call versus the one that we're on, and decide to drop what we're doing and go if the information bears it. And so I guess that's an encouragement to call and give good information, give as much information as you have, so that our response can be accurate, right? There's nothing more that we desire than that our priorities match your priorities as a community. But we're only working off of, the calls that come into us, and the info that we have. We had someone complaining about a gun being pulled on them, and that it took 2 hours for us to get there. And I think he was right. It probably did take us 2 hours to get there. But in that situation, by the time the call came into us, he was no longer in danger because the person had left in a car, and we had other things going on that had danger to people. And so I'm sure he felt lousy waiting 2 hours for the cops to come when he had just had a gun pointed at him. But given the numbers of cops we have out here, that's kind of the reality of it.
So are we kind of understaffed as far as our police department goes in this area? Because that seems like a very high wait time for other, parts of Washington.
Yeah, I don't know. Certainly, that would be a high average wait time, and that's not our average.
Right.
That was an exception. It's possible that could happen anywhere, depending on what type of calls there are. We have typically 2 patrol officers that work the White Center and the Boulevard Park Unincorporated South Park area. And we also have 2 deputies that work in Skyway, and so we kind of have to manage those 4 patrol deputies to cover those areas when people have to take someone to jail. So that sometimes means that there's not always 2 cops here. Sometimes there's 1. Sometimes there's not 1. I'm an addition to those 2 when I'm working. And then we do sometimes have detectives. Occasionally we have more as we're getting recruits coming through. Sometimes we'll be able to put a recruit car up here, so that kind of gives us 1 extra car. I would love to see more cops out here.
Is it a lack of, candidates, or is it a lack of funding?
It's not a lack. I don't think it's a lack of candidates. We're getting great recruits coming through. I've been able to train some of them, and I'm really pleased that they're going to come out here and work here. Our funding is being cut again. Where we're facing a budget cut. We have had the council and the executive's office pushing for more deputies, but even as they're pushing for more, sort of the whole pot is shrinking. So there's some budget challenges that our sheriff is facing. He has committed to making patrol the #1 priority, but there's tough decisions to be made too.
What can we do to help push on your behalf to avoid having the cuts? It sounds like your sense of it is they're coming. The cuts are coming whether you like it or not. What can we do to help?
I think I'm not totally sure. Maybe you guys know better than I do exactly where they are in the budget process. But I think that my sense is that the budget has already been delivered to the sheriff, and that he has to start making budget within that. So if that's true, then the sheriff would be the one that you need to make your voices heard to, and tell him that this area is important and that patrol is important, or whatever it is. If you think it's detectives, but patrol is a good place to start. We could certainly use more around here. When the budget process is in a different stage before it gets finalized, it's the executive's office and the King County Council that also have to hear that. Because the sheriff's in our court, he wants as big a budget as he can get, but once it gets delivered to him, then he has to make some choices about where they are. Is that right, Tom? That's where they are? Okay.
Yeah, the King County Council has public hearings on the budget. And when did we go on there?
Usually in the fall.
But we got in the fall, several, Liz and Pat and myself went down there to testify. And we were the only citizens down there representing our, citizens. All the other folks down there were nonprofits, you know, this is all unincorporated King County, representing different groups. So I encourage people to pay attention to that. It never hurts to go down there. We were heard. And it was commented on by one of the King County Council people that, you know, we were the only citizens to be down there testifying. It's a hard, you know, and it's in the evening when they do the budget hearings, so, and we write, as a council, we do write letters to the King County Council, and also, I mean, we run petition drives to get our storefront deputy. You know, we didn't have, it was, the position was cut for, was a couple of years almost, and then we petitioned to get the storefront deputy back. So it's always, and I mean, and we were heard on that, and I think Sheriff Urquhart really likes having the storefront deputy as much as we do here, so. But it's a matter of getting your voice heard, and then, you know, we're more powerful in numbers than not, so, you know, this is your community, so it's good to participate in it.
I had one other thing to talk about that earlier this week, it was Monday night, we had some cars driving all over the neighborhood, all kind of west of 8th Avenue, but quite a ways west over to 26th, shooting, cranking off rounds. There were a couple cars that were hit, and then just a lot of shooting into the air. It was pretty late at night, and so we had deputies out recovering shells, talking with callers about what the vehicle description was, what they saw or heard. But it was throughout the neighborhood. When things like that happen, it's good to call. I know it's the middle of the night, but it only takes a minute to pick up the phone and call and say what you heard, or if you happen to see, you know, a white car whiz by your window as you looked out. Because of all of those calls, we were able to put together a pretty good suspect description of the vehicle. It's likely that vehicle is going to be out rolling around again later. And from working graveyard, I know that we've oftentimes contacted those types of suspects the next day or the following day when they've been out again and been able to figure out what happened. You know, it may just seem like noise violations at night, but it's good to call. We much prefer to have that info that night than to get called the next day to just pick up shell casings. We'll pick up the shell casings that night too, but we like to, if we're able to, get a little bit more info. And when it's happening throughout the neighborhood like that, it's something that we really want to hear from. So, does that make sense?
Was that just for fun? Somebody was running around?
We don't know. We didn't find the guy that night, so we don't know what the motivation was. It didn't seem like there was. Oh, I see what you're saying. It didn't seem like it was a confrontation that was driving through the streets.
Having
Yeah,
fun.
it seemed like it was just at random.
Fortunately, nobody was killed.
No one was hurt. There was property damage, and certainly a lot of people were scared out of their sleep. But yeah, it didn't seem like that was an assault, you know, in a sense.
What was the property damage?
To a car. There was a car that got damaged.
Where was that? Or do you know?
That one might have been like on 107th. I know that a lot of it, there was some over by Coronado Springs, and then it kind of moved west from there, and then north. I can't remember. It seemed like we had about four, I think maybe four callers that night that kind of put it in different places. Yeah.
So was that Monday night or was that?
That was
morning?
Monday. It was the night that we were talking about. When I started going through and looking at it, I saw that.
Sounds like the car might have gone north.
Yeah, no, I think it was the same car that you were talking about, because as I started looking through, I saw that, there was like 3 or 4 of these reports similar to what you were talking about. Yeah.
I know you can't do anything about it, I'm sure, but, you know, we get a lot of fireworks out in this area.
Yeah.
And perfectly frank, since I don't go around shooting guns, don't own a gun, and don't go to a rifle range or more, I don't know what a gun sounds like. I have a general idea that's a little bit faster, sharper than, you know, and sometimes I can say, oh, I know it's a gun, but other times like, you know, I don't know how many people around here wonder that, and so don't report it.
Yeah.
You hear something, it's probably a gun, but.
Yeah.
Man, no, I just, and I don't know how we can get it across, because you really have to be somewhere where you've got a real live gun doing its thing.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah, no, if you don't know, just say what you know. Say, hey, I heard something, could have been fireworks, could have been a gun. We'll,
Yeah, 'cause
we'll come check it
I
out.
heard a loud boom, and I thought, oh, I wonder if that's it. But it's like you develop this shield in your mind, I guess, I don't know, it's like, I was wondering, I thought, is that a gun? But when I first moved to White Center and I bought my house, it was in June, so it must have been close to the 4th of July. And I heard this boom, 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 boom. I ducked. And I called 911. And then I realized it was fireworks.
Yeah.
I felt like a fool.
bottom line though, is call 911.
Yeah, right, call 911. We don't care, right? I mean, we go out to those calls all the time and we'll check them out. And if someone calls in and says, oh, I think it was fireworks, we'll still go and look, and sure enough, we may find evidence that it wasn't. But, I mean, we're here for a reason. And those types of calls don't slow us down from going to an assault either, right? Like, we push, that's why I say, like, we triage this stuff. And so you calling and saying, I heard a boom outside my house, can someone come by and check it out, isn't going to slow down response times to more serious events. Did you have a question?
This should be asked in the school board meeting, but since there was a shooting today at Seattle Pacific University, it made me wonder, in general, do you feel that our schools and public spaces are prepared for such a disaster?
Yeah, we have our schools have good security out here.
Okay.
I've been really pleased working with the guys down at Evergreen and Cascade. They're very capable people.
And even private schools, like daycare and things like that?
Yeah, I haven't worked with all the daycares around here, a couple of them. But you know, for the most part, those situations just fall on the staff.
Yeah.
I mean, they fall on the teachers. I don't know whether it's still true or not, but I heard up at SPU that it was staff that tackled this guy.
Yes. Well, I heard later that it was a student, monitor.
Yeah.
It was student
There was
monitor.
someone. So right, a lot of that times it may not be the security guards that are there to do it. It's going to be the staff, and for the most part, you know, there's so many instances that happen like this that people that work in those positions think about this stuff from time to time, and as well as there being formal plans, I've been pleased with the preparedness of people around here. Yeah, SPU is my alumni, so we're definitely thinking about that a lot today.